In the upcoming panel discussion on building a business that never sleeps, the always on 24/7 enterprise, the industry experts will discuss what does it take for the businesses to run 24/7, which and how tech is playing a role here. What are the lessons for other verticals? I would like to invite Shipra Malhotra, Executive Editor, Special Initiatives, ETCIO, to moderate this panel discussion. Over to you, Shipra.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this panel discussion. I hope you all have been having great sessions through the day. In this panel discussion, we are going to be discussing the topic, building a business that never sleeps, the always on 24/7 enterprise. We all live in a 24/7 world where systems are expected to be available 100% of the time. For some verticals, this proposition is good to have and can be a luxury, but for others, let's say a bank, a hospital, an OTT platform, especially now, an e-commerce company, it's a matter of survival. And the COVID-19 pandemic has, in fact, exacerbated this need for having 24/7 operations to ensure that they go on without any interruption. It's just become the key thing. Now, today in this panel discussion, we will bring to you business technology leaders from organizations that never sleep, so to say, and have to be up and running uninterrupted. I will be talking to these leaders to understand what it takes for them to run their business 24/7 and the role that technology plays. At the end of this panel, we hope to have some lessons for all of you to take back. Please join me in welcoming my panelists. I have the honor and pleasure of welcoming Mr. Ramesh Lakshminarayanan, Chief Information Officer, HDFC Bank. Next up is Mr. Arvind Sivaramakrishnan, Chief Information Officer, Apollo Hospitals. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Satish Rath, Vice President, Chief Innovation and Research Officer at Aster DM Healthcare. I also have with me Utkarsh B, Chief Architect for Flipkart. Also join me in welcoming Sumit Puri, Group CTO, Evercare Group. Joining him is also Debashis Singh, Senior Vice President and CIO for Mphasis. And we also have Rubal Sahni, Director, ServiceNow. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking our time to join us for this panel discussion. And like the topic says, it's about running a 24/7 enterprise that never sleeps. So I want to first ask very briefly to all of you, what does it take for a business such as yours to run 24/7, especially from a technology standpoint? And are there specific nuances that make it challenging to do so? So maybe if you can highlight just one or two aspects of technology when running a 24/7 business. Mr. Lakshminarayanan, maybe we can start with you. I think bank and hospitals are the two top of mind when it comes to a business that never sleeps.
Yeah, I think Shipra, absolutely. That's a very for people like us. This is the thing that keeps us awake. Forget about whether the technology is awake or not. I mean, we have to be awake, right? That sense. So it's a very, very topical in that sense journey that we have to take through. What is happening in the banking industry? I thought I'll just cover. First of all, the customer expectations have phenomenally changed. Banking was earlier. We will do our end of the day at 10 o'clock, shut down, go home, be happy. Today, there could be a emergency at the hospital at 1 o'clock. There could be a remittance that's coming in from all the way from somewhere in the US into India. There could be some, emergency coming in from one rural location in India. And this is the kind of ecosystem that we run. For a bank like ours, we see almost, thousands of transactions coming through, even in the middle of the night. So that's the kind of stuff that we are looking at. So the systems, obviously at the scale and the size at which, the banking industry is operating, today you have everything like UPI, the NEFTs, the cross-border transfers, so many of the payment systems coming through. So for us, this is the fundamental fulcrum on which the technology is kind of looked upon. I mean, there's nothing more important for us than keeping the systems 24/7. And we are in the middle. So I think the banks also are going through the transformation, because unlike some of the big techs, some of the e-commerce guys who came from the cloud native side, we are transitioning, and we have to learn fast, because that's how we would kind of go to that journey. So I think it's a very, very interesting time for the banks, because their architectures were slightly, I would say, in that sense, from the old world, and they're now transitioning into the new world. So while we keep the lights on the existing technology, it's also important for us to see where the new technologies are going and how fast can we adopt. So it's a double-edged sword for especially for the CIOs and CTOs of the banks. I'll just keep it here, and then we can come back and kind of discuss more on that.
Yeah, very, very rightly said. Banks definitely have transformed over the years from being a 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 operations to being 24/7 operations. I want to come to Mr. Sivaramakrishnan. Hospitals have always been a 24/7 operations. I mean, and I'm not saying that for a bank, even if it is down for a few minutes, even that is not acceptable now. But for a hospital, it is about lives being at stake. So, what are the specific nuances in your industry, and how is technology, becoming the key aspect for that?
Thank you, Shipra. See, healthcare, the expectation is being omnipresent. So that means at all points in time, we need to have the same levels of service. From a technology design, you look at it in terms of knowing your patterns very well, because you also need quite an amount of technology upkeep to happen at various points in time, whatever be the periodicity. So you need to know your patterns very well. You need to also have a reasonably sound, robust, and well executed business continuity plan, as well as a disaster recovery plan. And this helps ensure that whatever be the problem, whether the problem is because of manual issues that people wrongly did or whatever be the case, there is no drop in business. So business continuity irrespective of whatever is the root cause. And then ensuring that the technology, and when I say technology, it is not limited to infrastructure. It's also the applications that run over it are robust, and they are standing the test of time and technology. So logical upgrades to technology and keeping a wholesome balance. And the most important aspect behind all of this is keeping the technical resource manpower up to speed, so that this entire gamut of solutions, including their infrastructure, including all of it that it takes to deliver it to the end consumer, whoever be the end consumer in the ecosystem, is done well. Because ultimately it does boil down to the skill of the people that run it, and that needs to be very mature.
So Dr. Rath and Sumit, both of you are from the same industry as Mr. Sivaramakrishnan, and I'm sure you would have similar experiences. So maybe Mr. Rath first, Dr. Rath, with you first. Do you agree with what Mr. Sivaramakrishnan said, or do you have a different opinion on this, or do you see certain other nuances that are impacting your industry?
First of all, I think, healthcare as an industry itself, right? You understand that there is something which is 24/7, before even technology started, or let's say IT or digitalization started. So it's not that IT is driving 24/7 business, but healthcare has been a 24/7 business. So because, you needed something which is very, very high demanding environment, and you had actually very less resources for that. So healthcare has been designed into equity stages. So you have the ICUs and the OTs, which require 24/7 management, which are manual, and which are getting digitized slowly. Then you have a mid-level care, which requires, it's good to have around turnaround time of 2 hours to 24 hours kind of a thing. Then you had the OP care, which is low acuity setting. What we say is you can expect turnaround time in a day or 2 days or something like that. Especially after COVID, what has happened is, this acuity stages have changed completely. So you need to run your ICUs, rather multiple ICUs, that too remotely in 24/7. A small glitch actually costs life, as you said. Even if the oxygen meter is showing wrong reading, even the ventilator is showing wrong reading, even if your patient monitors are showing wrong reading, this is death. There is no other, margin of error is actually very low. So in the high acuity settings in healthcare system, I think a lot of work is happening, how to automate it, because there is a lot of burnout and we don't have so many technical manpower. So, we need to automate the already existing semi-automated system in the OTs and the ICUs, which is very, very important to save lives. But on the other side, due to COVID, what has happened is people cannot access the healthcare system, like the hospitals, the physical premises. Everything has to be online. If I'm worried that, I have got COVID positive and how do I address it? I cannot go to the hospital in the night. I have to have a portal or a chatbot or something which is there, which I can trust to say, yes, you can actually take these steps and other things. So which were not managed acutely in a 24/7 manner. Now the healthcare providers as well as the patients demand that, it has to be 24/7. So patients are now not ready to say that, yes, you have to wait up to the next day, like the bank opens and then you can have your transaction. Nobody of us wants that. So even the low acuity settings or the non-acute care settings also requires, due to this consumer drive, to be around 24/7. So this, I would say, is a big opportunity. Those areas of healthcare which were not supported or which were semi-automated, which were not 24/7, has to be 24/7 so that, consumers build their trust into it, as well as, the turnaround time, which is the key part. So if you are seeking some information and you are not getting within the vital time, then lives are lost or trust is lost, right? So that part is very important. And then I think we are seeing very good work actually, which is happening in this segment now. And unfortunately or fortunately, due to COVID, this work is accelerated. So we are seeing great level of automation in ICUs. We are seeing great level of, seamless workflow in the, mid ICU or the step down systems, as well as we are seeing a great adoption of telemedicine, which was never happening. Now you can actually access your healthcare system, your doctor, anytime, anywhere in the world. So these are good signs, I would say.
So I'll come to more on how COVID has changed the things. Sumit, you are based outside India. Are things a little different there in terms of, running a business 24/7 as compared to what it is in India? You have worked here as well as outside India, so you have kind of comparison of how it is there.
Yes, Shipra. So there are, thanks for the question. There are aspects that we have to bear in mind. I mean, horses for courses, very clearly. I think I'll just kind of go back to the points that were earlier mentioned. Frankly, we've talked about the fact that we do need a fair amount of business continuity planning. We do need to have a marriage of people, process, and technology, to make sure that this works like clockwork. Because 24/7 connectivity is absolutely imperative, for hospitals. And now, healthcare has moved beyond boundaries. So frankly, we are not talking about, hospital itself. You're basically talking about homes. 70% of the treatments can happen at home. If you look at, today, that's possible. If you have right protocols, right equipment, right IoT devices, you can remotely monitor patients. By the way, we are doing it. In COVID also, we have COVID remote monitoring happening. And that's the same case for other, lifestyle diseases. Now, if I compare the geographies, I mean, when we launched a telemedicine platform and remote monitoring platforms, we have hospitals in India, Bangladesh, Kenya, Nigeria, Pakistan. We realized that the maximum uptake was in Bangladesh. Why? Because amazing teamwork. People, process, technology working together. Joint teams working coordinated manner, delivering the best results. Our numbers went significantly through the roof. Whereas, of course, India was also quite good, but not so much in Kenya, not so much in Pakistan or Nigeria. And the reason for this also is that there are some aspects you have to consider. For example, is the bandwidth good enough in Kenya, in some of the more remote or kind of smaller towns or smaller kind of settlements there, and you have to change. You might want to not look at a 4G telecom platform. You might have to go with the 2G. You might have a doctor on call with the 2G network. So those are different nuances that we have to consider. But the key objective here is make sure we understand that this is now extended beyond boundaries, plan for it, and measure it. Because only if we measure it can we manage it. So it's important we have the right metrics and we basically start looking at the amalgamation of people, process, and technology to deliver the right outcomes.
Right.
Thank you.
Utkarsh, e-commerce has become, it was a 24/7 by business, and it became like a frontline industry during COVID, and all the workers, all the employees of the e-commerce sector are being considered as frontline workers. Now, when it comes to the e-commerce industry, you kind of have an advantage over some of the traditional industries like a bank or a hospital, where they have this whole setup, legacy that they have been born with and they have to take care of. Whereas in your case, you have started, afresh on cloud. So how is it different for you to manage a 24/7 business from a technology standpoint?
I think some of the elements still remain the same. And like I heard through the esteemed panel already, having a business continuity plan, right? Marrying people, process, and technology together in a coherent, repeatable, and predictable way. I think those elements do not change even for the e-commerce world. And that's where technology comes into the picture, right? If any part of your process chain, comprising of people, process, and technology interweaving in between, if all of it is repeatable, right, and it is predictable, that things mostly will not go wrong, then running a 24/7 shop is not that difficult. What you plan for then is things that may go wrong. That's where degradation recipes and business continuity planning comes into the play. So all of it is where the underlying technology infrastructure comes into play. Yes, to your point, it is true that we probably are more tech first, and e-commerce has been a more recent revolution, more so in India. When I joined Flipkart about a decade back, I myself was not an avid e-commerce buyer, right? And in 10 years, almost everything has changed, right? And today we feel that maybe this is the safest option to get essentials delivered at your home. Now, behind the scenes, there are sellers. There is a platform like Flipkart, and there are end consumers, and all of it has to work in a very coherent manner. Almost with the same vocabulary, right? And all of the things, right, that tie this entire process chain together is all technology driven, right? What is going on at what point of time, having a real-time visibility into it, need for course correction, right? Let's say, rules and regulations are getting changed or morphed by different geographies separately, right? How can you adapt to it almost real time, right? Lockdown may be present in Karnataka, but maybe not in other states. How can you be pretty much adaptive and flexible to the needs of the times? I think that's where technology has to come into play. If it is completely manually triggered and requires human interaction, then you can just rest assured that it might take 2 or 3 weeks for us to turn around and make it work for the end consumers. And that's where the technology prowess comes into the play.
Right. Debashis, you have customers across industries, and they depend on you to ensure that that their operations don't come to a standstill. So that's quite a lot of pressure on you. So how is it for you to manage?
Absolutely. In fact, a lot has been spoken by the other panelists, so I don't want to repeat, but a few of the areas I just want to double click. We strongly believe, and pandemic has reconfirmed, that every business today is a digital business. That's the first driver. Second driver, Utkarsh was just talking about the consumer behavior in terms of what the end customer is looking forward. Right? And that is cutting across industry today. Every individual, the current situation working from home, so there is no gap between an enterprise system and a consumer system, right? So expectation has completely changed. The expectation is whatever I'm finding as a consumer, I should get the same behavior, same availability, same performance across all the areas that I'm touching upon, be it enterprise or not. So these two drivers, in fact, changes the entire way of technology that is being enabled by different industries in the past compared to what is happening today. So now coming to the technology side of it, what are the drivers which is enabling? Cloud. Cloud is definitely coming in the rescue of this particular behaviors from the end consumer, which enables probably to kind of match with the expectation and deal with the variety and variability, which is the dynamics of the requirements that we have. Otherwise, in a traditional technology world, it is very difficult to meet the same user expectation or kind of performance all the time, right? And making a system available 24/7, it has got its own limitation, how much you can really do it, because there will be annual maintenance, there will be something, you might be definitely having a BCP plan or a DR plan, but still there will be a certain amount of kind of downtime. And that is not what expected today. In the today's context, everybody expects that everything has to be online 24/7, and that's what you rightly said. So that is the cloud is one of the fast driver there. The second technology driver which is enabling this is the automation. And we're today talking about intelligent automation in terms of bringing the machine learning and artificial intelligence into it and ensuring your environment is running all the time. I think there was a discussion some time back on the panel, need to have the right team. Absolutely, yes. But humanly, it is not possible to do everything right all the time. So you need to probably kind of look at a combination of a human intelligence and artificial intelligence to run the systems. So these are the drivers we see across the industry. Interesting time, and let's continue the discussion.
Right. Rubal, you've heard all the technology leaders talk about the challenges, what technology means for them. In your interactions with your customers, have you seen similar challenges of a 24/7 business, or do you think the nuances differ from industry to industry?
So Shipra, first of all, thank you for the question, and great to be with such esteemed panelists today. I guess we have heard about all the parameters which we hear from almost every industry. I guess as Mr. Singh also mentioned that today every business is a digital business, whether it is a hospital, because I had few members in family who were COVID positive, and I was continuously taking advice from various doctors online, right? And similarly, all the home grocery and everything was dependent on all the e-commerce players, right? So everything became online. And I don't remember when last I visited a bank. So Mr. Ramesh, for you, I have not visited HDFC Bank from like now more than 4 or 5 years. I don't know when I visited it last, right? So everything is now digital, right? And the important parameters which we heard is, marrying people, process, technology, BCP, DR, so that everything is on every time, right? Flexibility, speed, agility, right? And in some of our conversations with our customers, I guess with the platform which ServiceNow offers, we were able to provide a cloud which comes with DR and BCP facility. On top of it, it is inbuilt with, as Mr. Deb also mentioned, with AI and ML kind of flexibilities or features already built into it, caters to the external end of the customers, which is customers, and then tying it to the back. Today, if anybody talks about digital transformation, it has to be from front to back and back to front again. It has to be a closed loop, and it is easier to get it done when it is on the same platform. Otherwise, we deal with challenges of integrating so many point tools where we can never be a first mover to the market. And on those 2 points, Shipra, as you mentioned, I would like to mention then all of you to also look at story of Amazon Go, what we have done. So Amazon Go are the stores which Amazons have created. It is worked on an entirely ServiceNow platform. You can just walk into the store, pick up the items, walk out, and you will be billed from your Amazon account directly. So it's a very hybrid kind of an environment which is built. The second experience is, I guess nobody in this panel would have been there who have not seen Disney Plus growth in terms of subscribers, right? So that's another example which I want to share, that we kind of worked with Disney management, global management, who were kind of encountering the challenges that all the Disney parks were closed. The revenue was going down. The business has to quickly adapt and see what kind of newer revenue streams they can tap into. They quickly launched Disney Plus, and they had a huge scale in front of them. They didn't take a traditional approach of looking at a CRM or a ERP. They said those are building blocks, they'll be there. but what can we do to give that kind of a user experience and scale quickly? That is where we work with them for the entire digital transformation. Again, as I said, front to back and back to front, entire that layer of, subscriber onboarding till supporting or deactivating a subscriber is built on ServiceNow on Disney Plus. So whenever we are thinking of an innovation and out of the, way kind of an idea, ServiceNow is the platform of choice. But thanks, Shipra, for that question. Over to you.
Yeah, those are interesting examples that you gave. So I want to come back to you, Mr. Lakshminarayanan. Now, when we are saying that 24/7 business is normal for a bank, a hospital, e-commerce, OTT platform. Now, if it is already the normal, then what is the new normal, for organizations such as yours? Now, what we have seen is that, there has been a massive surge in pressure on an already burdened 24/7 IT system that you have. And, how is it, challenging you further, and how are you coping with it, and what kind of shift has this demanded in your technology and digital strategy?
So I think very interesting question, Shipra, because see, if you're looking only at normal, and not looking at new normal, then you're going to kind of, have trouble, because whatever, you can put classical, resources, all the kind of hardware power, it's not going to kind of sustain, right? And on top of it, the usual things like monitoring, DR and all, you'll continue, but it's not going to fundamentally shift. That's the main thing that we see in banking industry. So we are coming off, like I said, about 15 years of 20 years of legacy systems, JVM architectures, still using app servers, servlets, and those kind of stuff, right? And here is a very different outlook saying, no, you have to be run 24/7. Even if you're running a batch job on your core banking server, it still has to go, right? And that kind of a thought has to completely change today. It doesn't kind of, go back. And one of the fundamental ways to shift is, first of all, this disaster recovery itself, the term is changed. There is no recovery. You have to plan for disaster in a way that it's seamless today. There are 2-3 fundamental shifts happening here. One, your engineering side or on the development side has to accommodate or design for resilience. It cannot be done post, which is classical. We keep talking about site resiliency. We keep talking about DevOps. But the fact is that that's reality today. If you're going to plan for, okay, I will put an application and then I will get somebody to kind of hold it, it's not going to work. So fundamentally, the design principles of development have changed today. So and the talent that does is very different talent. It's not the kind of usual talent that you get and say, okay, we can do it. I mean, take an example like Rubal spoke about Disney. Netflix is a great example. There's something called Chaos Monkey. Right? They just kill their systems, all the time just to test whether it's going down or not. They actually kill themselves. I mean, we are kind of not there yet as a banking industry. And that's the kind of shift we want to do, because if you to do that, then the thought process around cloud native architecture, microservices led architecture, deep containerization, all of that stuff, database, for example, one of the biggest problems that banks have is database replication, because traditionally it's been a weak area, because in a traditional database RDBMS you can't just kind of go on to the other side, especially 1,000 kilometers away replicating data kind of stuff, and then being read write on both sides. So these are technology limitations, and that's where some of the cloud native technologies are kind of taking shape, right? And banks have to learn. So what we are thinking is very different. We are saying, okay, look, we have to stop buying technology and putting it together. I mean, we will continue to buy technology, not that we stop, but the capability to create the design and the architecture has to come very deep and embedded, and that's where I think the shift, like I said, the whole concept is how do I make active architecture right up front, not kind of plan for it, after I go live. And this is the full new normal that I see. In fact, to me, the first thing that I nowadays ask when you look at a solution is not whether the solution is good looking or it's great UI, and those things will happen. The first thing is this active? Can it scale horizontally, right? And is it self-sustainable in a chaos mode? I think fundamentally that's how we are looking at this whole equation, and that's the engineering and design principles that have to come into the technology builds in the banks if they have to make the leapfrog to the next set of journeys, so to say, and ensure that and we are a very connected ecosystem, like somebody spoke about. I mean, healthcare cannot do without a banking. Entertainment industry can't do without banking, and e-commerce will not be able to. Finally, you have to kind of end up and do that debit, right? And if you're not able to do that debit, it's a little bit of a challenge. So I think interesting times, and we have to harmonize ourselves with some of these industries and see how do we kind of move forward from here. So I hope that kind of answers that question.
I mean, very critical, the fact that you mentioned the harmonization among industries. I think that is going to be a very important critical aspect in the new normal. Also, you gave the example of Flipkart. Do you think when you're talking about how they kill themselves or they kill what they're developing, do you think that organizations in India are a little risk averse in that sense, and that's the reason why that kind of innovation is lacking?
Yes, Shipra, I think Netflix is a good example, and unfortunately, you're right. Because we keep worrying. See, there are 2-3 elements. One, in India, the DR was always a cost-driven activity. To be honest with you, we should not shy away from it. It's something that you have to put on the table. Every time, in the management, in the boardrooms, DR hai, theek hai, drill. I mean, we'll do drills. It doesn't work like that. There is nothing called DR drill. You have to run your DRs all the time. Your water has to flow on all the pipes, right? So that's one fundamental change that we look at. So the risk-taking capability is not just on the fact that we'll test the technology, but also the ability to invest into those technologies. And I'm just making that very, very clear. The second point, like you said, is obviously the whole thought process of, like I said, these design elements come much before you go live. And unless you test these theories before the application systems are all built in, you would not be able to take and those risks have to be proven again and again. And you're right. In fact, a lot of times I find, and I'll be honest with you from my industry perspective, a lot of time we do DR drills. We'll say, okay, weekend we will do, Saturday morning we will just test the DR, and Sunday evening we'll come back. It doesn't work like that, because the scales at which you operate on a Monday morning are very different, or the scales you operate on a month end are very different, right? So that's why I think the planning and the risk-taking capabilities have to be there. But it's a process. And the other thing is, it also needs like what we spoke about technology. The other thing I also find is the process. Whatever we do, but a lot of changes kind of ultimately the disaster happens. Of course, there's natural disasters, but a lot of disasters in the current cloud construct are because of changes, actually, and that you cannot kind of go away from that. And that needs a different kind of process and an automation thought process around the process. How to kind of look at that. So it's an interesting intersection. The risk management is also, I would say, very, very embedded into this construct of the application, so to say. And then you kind of build on processes, and then you start taking those into the production cycle. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, Utkarsh, your thoughts on that? You agree with him, or is there anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes many of these jolts wake you up, right? And way back in 2014, when we did our first Big Billion Day, and as a consumer, you would have seen that we were not as performant, right? You would have seen enough problems on the site, and that woke us up in a jarring way. And from that point onwards, just like it was mentioned just a while back, we started doing our Chaos Monkey. We have these concepts of non-functional requirements. We call it NFRs, and we have a term called red line, which means you want to cross that red line, right? Let's kill ourselves. We do a monthly red lines. We actually bring down our systems, maybe at a time when you are not awake, maybe at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, but it's done in a repeatable way. We bring ourselves down, and we also know how to bring it back up again. So this entire business continuity and disaster recovery, more than orchestrated drills, should be totally systemized. You should have the ability to dial yourself down as well as dial yourself up. If you're able to do it repeatably, then you're truly business continuous. So that's the first and foremost thought that has to be a new normal for each one of us. Secondly, I think looking at our entire technology platform as Lego building blocks, just draw a parallel to how kids play with Lego blocks around us, right? If you come up with a very very stoic kind of a platform which cannot be broken, then in any of these times, right, and a new normal comes in, you'd be just faced with a crisis. But if it is a Lego building block, you can remove one block replace it with something else. So your platforms have to be truly elastic, agile, so that you can adapt. And sometimes we also use this term called growth hack, right? You can do multiple growth hacks at different parts of your ecosystem, right? And that truly helps you be very morphable, very adaptable, and come what may in the future, you'll be more than ready to embrace it. I think these two for me are the most important elements of how you look at technology and the right mindset to go with it.
Right, right. Thanks for adding to that. Mr. Sivaramakrishnan, now hospitals, what is the new normal for hospitals? I know there's a lot of changes happening. In your opinion, post-COVID, what do you think will be the new normal for hospitals, and how is it challenging you as a CIO, and what kind of shift are you working on? I mean, have you already thought of the kind of shift that you need in your digital strategy, or is it something that you're going to wait and watch how it pans out and then work on it?
I like it when you say wait and watch, but you guys never give us time to wait or watch. So both options are ruled out for us. See, when you look at it from a new normal or whatever, the consumers are now used to an alternate way by which healthcare can be delivered, healthcare can be consumed, and the organizations are also aligned towards delivering these on alternate platforms at the same quality levels and experience levels. So this was not a short-term exercise that we lived for a couple of weeks. We've now crossed a year on this sort of a living. So that means that there are alternate models that we have all experienced. It's going to be history in terms of whether we're going to live at it, at what percentage we are going to live at it, and all of that. But it also demonstrates very clearly, again, now from a very healthcare viewpoint, the scale that healthcare is required to be consumed by members on the planet, members in the country, is not something that you can create on physical scale. There's only so many hospitals you can build. Let's be brutally honest about it. There's only so much space that is going to be there. There's only so much of resources, both equipment as well as people who can man all of this. That means it's the technology that's bridging it. So I think the new norm as we see it is not only designed to scale, but execute to scale. The only place where I will slightly differ from what Ramesh mentioned was, this also means that the usability factors of the solution have to be so, effective that the whole aspect of training a work process becomes very simplistic. That means your margin of errors when you're infusing technology into a work process is intuitively trainable, and it is actually part of your workflow. That is for the people who are the provider side of it. For the consumer or the patient side of it, it is as good as physical, or there is no difference between the physical and the non-physical. Because healthcare has always been physical, and let's not fake ourselves by saying that all these technologies that you're seeing now happened in the last 1 year. No, they existed for the last 10-15 years and nobody used them. Okay, it was just brought to use instantaneously one weekend, end of March last year. Okay, so that's really what happened. Let's not behave like it suddenly cropped up. That means that you are putting this to scale. And healthcare delivered at the same experience, because you used to going to a hospital, you used to waiting in a queue despite having options. Today, those are not. So I think you'll have to look at it in a complete shift of technology playing a sub or a DNA to every work process, bringing in efficiency and quality. Every work process, just not the front facing, thereby increasing our ability to serve at a capacity level that is now comparable to the demand. Otherwise, the demand and supply in healthcare are just not comparable quantities. I think that's what is the shift that's going to be. How successful, how effective, I think that's time going to say, but quality is going to be the yardstick with which we're going to measure all of this.
Right. So I have a slightly different question for the other three CIO leaders. But before that, I want to quickly come to Rubal and ask him, Mr. Lakshminarayanan spoke about agility. Mr. Sivaramakrishnan spoke about scale. Utkarsh spoke about, how, you need to set up systematic processes, automated processes. In your opinion, quickly, what do you think are, how do organizations need to rethink and rebuild their digital and tech strategy? One of those top 2-3 things that they need to keep in mind for doing that.
Thanks, Shipra. And I guess very good discussion, very good points by Mr. Ramesh, Utkarsh, and Mr. Arvind. I like what Mr. Ramesh said, that you have to think of the strategy design first. It has to be active, because there is a brand reputation which is there at stake, right? Once a customer who has a bad experience, he's trying to do a transaction, it fails, he'll never come back to HDFC Bank or any other bank for that matter, right? There are so many such options outside there. Same for Flipkart, right? If I have an issue, there are other options which are there, right? So it is very important and imperative to have the right design, right? And then to what Utkarsh mentioned, like a Lego block, so that you can quickly maneuver, you can quickly alter the strategy, right? Very important. We have seen that during pandemic, everybody has gone through it. Mr. Arvind mentioned about that, the usability part of it, so that, the end customer or the consumer experience is not degraded at all. They are still getting the same experience. So I would like to mention here, from a ServiceNow perspective, we have 4 building blocks like those Legos in the platform. One is which takes care of the customer side, customer interactions, or the customer workflows, in which intelligence is infused. These are not just normal workflows, right? And then it connects with the IT side of the workflows, which is not just about keeping the operations, but also, Mr. Ramesh was mentioning about how do you induce risk into it. So risk and security operations is already induced into our IT workflows, where we can actually cater to the enterprise risk as well, not just the cyber risk. Okay. Third piece is the employee side. Because of pandemic now, employee management or employee service delivery is also very, very important. How can our employees who are kind of working within our environment or a hybrid kind of an environment or completely remote environment can be managed, work from anywhere? How can we give them a similar kind of experience is also very important. So this is the third pillar of ServiceNow, in which a lot of organizations have adopted it. Fourth pillar is where we have opened the flexibility of our platforms, as Utkarsh mentioned about, using it as a Lego. We have kind of converted and opened that platform and shared it with our customers for building any use cases at scale whenever you need it, right? So these are the 4 things which customers are using. And all the terminologies like modern ops, observability, DevOps, and a lot of customers used to get into technical depth saying that, okay, cost pressure, end of the day, only a ticket has to be opened, only a work has to be flown from one department to another. That's a technical depth which has been induced into the organization. How can we get rid of it during this time? This is the time to look at it, right? I want to give a very good use case here, which will tie up all these stories. So National Health of Scotland, when the vaccination drive started, they had to vaccinate all the citizens of Scotland, and they had to come up with something in 4 working days, right? And there was a call which was set up between their CEO and our CEO, and within 4 days, ServiceNow vaccine administration solution was rolled out across Scotland. And now you can see, the kind of population which is kind of vaccinated there is in, double digits, while, India population and Scotland population, we cannot compare, but they are really, ahead of the curve in terms of vaccinating their employees. Similarly, state of Washington just took 2 days to, kind of open a portal and tie it up to all the centers which they have across, Washington state, where all the citizens can come for their testing when pandemic started last year. Now, why I'm sharing that is, all of you would have heard ServiceNow as a IT service management or IT kind of a tool company. But when this came, we used our platform only to innovate and release products which have nothing to do with IT, which are solving human problems. A vaccine administration, or kind of return to workplace kind of solutions were launched using the platform in record 15 days from the time of inception. So, if I hope I was able to tie the story back and cover each of your points, but that is the platform beauty and the building blocks which are part of the platform, which will help any enterprise agnostic to the industry be able to use it. Whether it is hospitals, whether it is banks, we're also working with some banks which are without branches. The bank is set up in such a way that they don't have any branches. I can't take the name because we are under NDA, but you can look up and look for those kind of banks. Second thing is example on some of the hospitals. NHS I have mentioned. Sanford Health in US is completely working with ServiceNow on launching a lot of transformational areas around there. Rather than that bell thing in the ICU or in the hospital beds where patients have to ring a bell and call the nurse. How can they actually change that complete experience, and only the people who are in need comes first rather than who rings the bell first? Because somebody would be clicking the bell for a pillow and somebody might be clicking a bell just after a few seconds for a chest pain. So which patient nurse should be addressing first? The one who has asked a pillow just because he clicked the bell first, or the one who's complaining for a chest pain? So with that, thanks Shipra, and over to you.
Yeah, again, a very interesting example. Now, at the bottom of all this is, the crux is innovation. So I want to come to Dr. Rath now. You also head the innovation aspect in your organization. Now, all this, this is also the time that requires driving greater innovation around enhancing operational efficiencies or improving customer experience, or whether it is optimizing costs. However, time is also of the essence, and agility is key at this time. So can you tell us how you are leveraging digital to drive innovation that's iterative as well as quickly adapts to the uncertain, fast-changing business dynamics?
I think that's a very important question, right? I would say the most important question in this part. So we definitely were thrown into a corner that, yes, you need to innovate. And now innovation is no more a, luxury. You have to innovate to survive. It's not that, you have to innovate to, let's say, be visible. So very key part is, as we are looking for is, your previous question, what is normal and what is a new normal? So I would say maybe IT and internet, these two waves were the normal. Though even, like Arvind said that, these were there, but people were not using them. But now they are forced to use them, for their survivability. I would say the new normal is deep learning, or let's say, behavioral psychology or behavioral economics, where you can create data, because I think, somebody said in the panel also very rightly, every business is digital. When we say every business is digital, there is a big difference to be made out here is IT supported workflow is not digital. If the business is digital, it is actually digital from the origin. What I mean here is, let's say cloud and machine learning and neural nets and, all these things are the normal, and there is nothing, new about these things. But if you take care of the data from the origin itself, how many patients I'm having, what are their profiles, what are their behaviors, what medicines they consume, what they like, what they don't like, what language they keep. When you create this layer of the data, native data or the raw data, and then you start building your applications as Lego blocks as it is going, because, every year, like Darwin's philosophy, we will be evolving. So, it is very easy if you start from the data, then, keep on changing your Lego blocks based on the environmental needs or the demands of the pandemic. There might be a new pandemic, next, or there might be a new business, which might be going away there. This actually involves your team of, which has to be a traditional CIO team, right? Why we have a research team and why we have an IT team is most of the IT teams in the organization I've seen are a little bit dependent also on the old and the legacy technologies, right? So we have this classical, problem of, okay, we are not allowed to disrupt, but, we are also not able to understand the, newer technologies which are coming in. So you're getting into now no code environment where you can actually, keep on developing newer workflow if you have that sandbox of data, with you. But maybe my old CIOs, I mean, with all respect to all of them, is it is not their field, So deep learning is a very, very new field. How do you actually build things from scratch, but in 2 days' time, 3 days' time, as Rubal was saying. So for that, I think it is very important for the organization to understand that, you have to build a digital team also. If you have a digital aspiration, you cannot actually do that by keeping on doing the same things whatever you're doing. So you have to see your ratio. We did a very interesting exercise. What is the ratio of the AI scientists and the machine learning and the neural net individuals compared to, let's say, how many typical IT traditional folks we have, and the number was shocking. And then this is also eye-opening to the HR to say that if you have digital aspiration, you cannot build that with a non-digital workforce. Then you depend on people, who will be doing it for you, but because they don't know actually data from the origin, they cannot do that. So the digital strategy, what Ramesh said very easily is, very nicely is, you have to start at the top. I will be going for this, and it has to be 100% digital. It cannot be a hybrid approach where I will do up to 30% or 50%. You have to build a digital team, which will be augmenting the IT team or the IT legacy what you have. And many times, many of the businesses, let's say 1MG is a great example. We have so many big hospital brands in India. But why a e-pharmacy or a e-consult or a Teladoc or a Bing Gang doctor is not going to come from the hospital, including the Mayo or the Cleveland, because they cannot think beyond the hospital. Whereas the new guys would be thinking that there is no hospital like the branchless bank, and this is the new normal, and they will be building this 1MG or the PharmEGs or the NetMeds and the other things, which will be keeping on happening. So it is very important for management to understand is the new normal is not the old IT, and digital is actually machine learning, deep learning heavy. And these are new technologies, these are new kids in the block, and the new normal is you have to fight them. You have to fight Amazon, you have to fight a Google, which is into health insurance, into healthcare record. You have to fight Amazon, you have to fight the Tesla, which is into the mRNA vaccine. A very good example I will end up with is, if you just observe COVID, right? We have been talking so much about COVID, did a lot of digital transformation, but the real success story actually came from two vaccines. One is BioNTech, a startup from Germany, and the other one is Moderna, right? So two startups saved the world, despite having all these big pharmaceutical R&D houses, including the Googles and the Amazons and the Facebooks, because they could think something new, and they have been thinking something new. And why that is happening, if you decode it, is currently at the technology resolution what we have, we can see life at the codon levels. So like in digital, we use 1 and zeros. In biological life, we see them in ACGT. So the entire world is actually, our entire life is actually decoded into the ACGT programming. Now, as we do very heavy computational intensive, let's say, computation, we can understand where the problem is. That's how we are able to come up with the vaccine, which is unprecedented. Before 1 year, nowhere in last 100 years, we could develop a vaccine. Similarly for IT, I think, we have to go much more deeper. I think we get a little bit biased towards cloud because that is our comfort zone. But I think we always forget that, the data at the origin. So I would say we have to focus as CIOs, how you actually clean the data and increase the resolution of the data, what you are collecting for your business. That is going to be the foundation of your business. Then the second option I would say, or suggestion I would say, is build your digital team. Your IT team is a great team which can upgrade it to be a digital team, but there is no way that, so there are also challenges I've seen that, IT team resisting, having a digital team. Why we need AI scientists into our team? Why you need actually AI scientists, being part of this. But that's the new normal. You have to live with this world. And the third part is, if you have digital business or digital ambition, and if you're actually 90%, let's say, analog now, if you want to do that, either do a completely different vertical for digital, so that these people can fly and compete with the real digital competition of them, or let's say continue with the stuff that I will continue with the analog business and I will adapt to the industry. So maybe these 2 or 3 things I would suggest as the new normals.
So, the classic debate of, does digital come under IT, or should we have 2 separate teams? I think that would actually requires a big discussion in itself. So, which we'll keep it for a later date. Sumit, in the meanwhile, what is
just not to be misunderstood. So I don't say that there should be 2 teams. It would be disaster if there are 2 teams, but it should be upgrade of the existing IT team. So definitely, let's say DL is a much larger upgrade compared to, let's say, what the IT team is capable of. You need to ingest more new, fresh minds and fresh, let's say, resources who would be capable of delivering it. But it should be an integrated team.
Yeah, what you mentioned is actually a debate which is ongoing, which is already ongoing, in within organizations. So, Sumit, how are you working on innovation that is iterative, that is fast adapting to the dynamics of the industry, adapting quickly and being agile? How are you ensuring that in your organization?
Sure. I think very clearly there's some very good points that have already been shared. And I must say that we've talked about harmonization of industry sectors. And, by this, we talk about a ecosystem. But I think, insurance players, technology players, telecom players, healthcare, all of this need to, come together. But even more than that, there needs to be also harmonization internally. And that's the point we were just discussing, when the digital teams or IT teams, they have to be integrated. Frankly, in my mind, even the silos of departments need to change. We shouldn't be having a finance department only pushing for, the bottom lines and, and controlling costs. And let's say, we've got a different perspective altogether in legal and a different perspective in IT and, whatever else, operations doing. It has to harmonize, has to basically come together, because the new normal is not going to be the same. By the way, what we say is new normal today is not the new normal tomorrow. It's about learning agility. It is about consistency of process execution. It's about collaboration, building that collaboration within and without, both sides. And I think when we talk about design and, we talk about the way we want to kind of take this forward, I definitely agree that there has to be a, infusion of talent. There has to be digital teams that need to work with the existing IT teams, work together. They have to work on the design. They also have to work on the run. I mean, Ramesh mentioned a very good point saying this has to be run and grow. You have to have lights on and then burn the also kind of new palace, or kind of have a completely new, kind of citadel created. But you have to have the run happening. You can't afford a downtime. But at the same time, innovation has to happen. Innovation is the need of the hour. We will need to have learning agility. We will need to have people who are willing to adapt, to change, and modify their behaviors. And we've seen that customer is going to be at the center. He will need to dictate. In some ways, we are still focusing on customer experience. And to manage this customer experience, data is key. And no, not one person can manage it. Absolutely agree with Dr. Rath that you have to start focusing on data. I mean, the data aspect, the artificial intelligence aspect, to really manage this data, measure, manage. And also, in some ways, we've talked about now, for example, artificial intelligence for diagnostics, for radiology. And I remember, a couple of years back, I was traveling to Amsterdam and we actually had AI for radiology coming up. And they said 85% accuracy of that AI engine versus, let's say, a 70% traditional radiologist. But the remaining 15% was so wrong, or at least 5%, 10% was so wrong that radiologists are not embracing it. Now, to me, this requires learning agility. This requires training. This requires hand-holding. Train the machine to become more useful. Tell him what went wrong, and he will become excellent at it. But you have to have the patience to train it, because you basically are kind of expecting it to work by itself without having the patience. And I must say, in India especially, we have to start having that patience to learn and grow, together. We have to train, in some sense with maybe some people who probably know better than us, but acknowledge that there will be machine learning and AI that will become very important. One doctor cannot replace 1 million doctors' minds, which are already assimilated into an AI engine. And you'll see the benefits coming through. But you have to augment the doctors. You can't replace them. You should not replace them. You have to augment them with intelligence, with insights, and do it together. Do it with collaboration between sectors and also between the department silos. Break down those walls. And that's what I'd say.
Right, absolutely. I think breaking down walls, whether across departments or across industries, is very critical. So Debashis, everyone has been talking about AI, innovation, cognitive technologies. You are at the forefront of working on new innovations around that. So how are you driving those innovations within your organization to be agile and to quickly adapt to the new changes that are happening?
Very quickly, I know your sort of time. So we started a lab internal in our organization focused purely on cognitive technology way back in 2013, almost 8 years back. And look at this team, majority are PhDs and doctors in that, neurologists and all those people, whatever we're talking about, right? and what is the objective and why we have done that and what we are getting out of it. In a traditional IT way, if you look at data, you don't really get anything out of it. You will eventually try to create a technology solution which may not really give the so-called innovative problem solving for a business requirement, right? And that is what happens in a traditional way. And these are the set of people, and I'll just kind of stitch it back to the earlier part that every business is a digital business. So that essentially means generating huge amount of data. And this data, if it is not analyzed and not analyzed in the real time, there's no point doing it. You cannot do a post factor after 1 month or 1 week. By then the experience is gone. You are just probably trying to get ready and give a second chance to yourself. So that is not what the world we are living today. Look at Amazon, what they do. They work in real time. They're able to produce within 18 seconds a new services based on a complete AI model. System learns out of it what is the behavior of the consumers in certain pocket across the geo, and it creates a solution within that without any personal intervention, anyone doing anything, right? So that is the world we are moving towards. These are the customer experience we're moving towards. And for that, within the organization, the culture has to completely change. I completely agree with a lot of views that have been shared. Need to have the real investment into the right set of people, right set of skills. Traditional technology cannot handle it. Second factor, focus on possibly, if you can, citizen development. That is a key driver for us. Within, we have seen the benefit of that. It really makes miracles within. I mean, you can't imagine a solution which a business guy can bring in, and with the current low-code, no-code platforms, it is really easy. And you just enable them with the data points and whatever you are doing, the analytics, deep learnings around it, and the solution comes out of it. And these are the areas to focus on. The approach has to change, and that is the way probably the new normal is going to be defined.
Right. I mean, I would have loved for this discussion to keep going, but due to time constraint, I want to wrap it up with one quick response from all of you. If you have to define that, what is that one secret sauce for running a 24/7 business, and one learning that you would like to share with your peers? So one by one, Mr. Lakshminarayanan, we can start with you. One secret sauce. I'm not sure if there can be a one secret sauce, but yeah, from your perspective, what will that be?
Yeah, I mean, I wish there could be one secret sauce for something like this, right? But at a top level, I would say talent. Let me put it that way. If they are to put it in one word, I think deep tech talent would something that I would really love to have as one of the secret sauces to run this.
Great.
Stop there.
Great. Mr. Sivaramakrishnan, your recipe, or one ingredient of that secret sauce, main ingredient.
Precision to execute.
Okay, great. Utkarsh, what about you?
So I would say data citizenship, which hyper connects the entire world around you, all stakeholders.
Okay, great. Sumit?
Yeah, I think healthcare is at the cusp of a revolution and transformation and delivery. Collaboration is the key.
Okay, Dr. Rath?
I think most of them have said the same thing. Difficult to say in one word, but talent for sure. So build your digital team and build on open innovation. So we work with a lot of startups. We intend to learn from them as well as invite them. As well as what we have started as a program in Aster is we have started training AI and IT, which is a mandatory training for all our doctors. So now, businesses cannot run where you can expect the IT team or the digital team to do things for you. Doctors need to know about the languages and the nuances of AI. Same as also we have started training our digital team on biology and medicine. So, so this is very important because future solutions are going to be interdisciplinary. So I would say interdisciplinary digital team would be the key secret sauce.
Debashis, from your state.
Very quickly, combination of human intelligence and artificial intelligence for every services that you deliver.
Okay. Rubal, you have the last word here. You want to combine all of them, or you have your...
Yeah, I'll probably combine everything because...
Or you have a secret ingredient of your own.
No, I would say, see, I'm as ServiceNow family in India, we are really blessed and happy because we have Mr. Arvind and Mr. Dev already as our customers from quite some time, in various capacities which they are using. And if you'd ask one secret sauce which can help all the problems of everyone, is ServiceNow platform, because it has got all the ingredients to solve the problem. So that is one secret sauce.
Yeah, that was great. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I wish we could continue with this discussion, but we will have more points to discuss at a later point. I thoroughly enjoyed the discussion, and I hope you all had a good time too. It was quite insightful. There are a lot of aspects of a 24/7 business that we discussed, and I hope our audience can take some of those lessons and apply them in the organizations. So thank you, everyone, once again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, panelists, for touching every question in detail. I must say that the content shared by our esteemed speakers will definitely help our audience in overcoming their challenges and will help their businesses to grow. Now we will proceed to the next session, but as usual, we'll stop for a networking break. Enjoy the event and stay tuned.